as a warning, this video is geared for people over the age of 25, mainly for people that have been playing video games over the last decade and are now entering adulthood. Because at that stage of your life, how we look at nostalgia changes. With all the remasters and remakes being re-released, wow, that had a lot of REs in the title. I guess 2023 was a weird year for game titles. We have some bangers, such as Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Resident Evil 4 Remake. But at the same time, we did have many direct ports of older games that were combined into bundles, such as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, Metal Gear Solid Collection, Mega Man Battle Network Collection, and many more. It's nice to see these games brought back into a modern era and allowing younger generations to play them, but was the impact of their re-releases as powerful as when the game originally launched? Well, the short answer to that is no, and the long answer is going to be talked about in this video. Possibly due to us as players already reliving the experiences and stories of these games, and why there's potentially gaming burnout for these remakes. And in the case of gamer burnout, which plays a role in today's video gaming and why some people don't feel like these older generational classics don't have as much of a punch as they did back 10 to 20 plus years ago. So, on this episode of Why This Matters, we're going to look into why video games don't have the same feel as they did when we were kids. So plug in your Nintendo 64, grab your 3D glasses, and don't have a cow, man, as we look into video game burnout on Why This Matters. For those of you who don't know, or maybe this is your first time watching one of these, the premise of Why This Matters is to look at a video game or an aspect of gaming in a retro perspective and analyze it in modern times. This is done by asking deep questions on gaming as a whole and comparing it to more recent changes with technology or events that have shaped video games. And when talking about burnout, it's commonly related to college or work, because as we get older, we get exhausted of doing the same thing over and over. College is a great example of this, as it's difficult for most and it takes up a lot of our time and can compound into other things, and some boring 9-to-5 job is similar, as it's the same hours over and over, doing the same routine over and over. That can get exhausting. Overall, burnout is a state of mental or physical exhaustion combined with a detachment of activities we once enjoyed. Most commonly, burnout is connected to work-related activities, but can the same thing happen to video games, or yet older video games? Well, yes, this can happen to video games. So be warned, you Fortnite players or mobile players, 20 years from now, will you still be playing the same game? With video game burnout, it's very similar to work or college burnout, but with the enjoyment of a video game. I dare you to play the same game that you did when you were 10 years ago. Now go back and replay that original game, and do you feel the same? You might, if it's been a really long time. But what if it's one of those really linear games? This is a great example of cynicism, or depersonalization, which is a negative or cynical attitude towards the activity or work that once brought joy or satisfaction. A great example of this is the original Pokemon games. These games, compared to the more modern Pokemon games, drastically show how monotonous they really are. I can already see the comments below raging about this, because like, I love Pokemon Red, I love Pokemon Blue. Well, my video, my rules. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But hear me out. In Pokemon Red and Blue, these games have been beaten and conquered so many ways that you can YouTube or look up a guide and it'll talk about how to finish it with incredible ease. So even for a new player, due to the popularity of the game, they're probably going to pick Charmander on their first playthrough because he's one of the flagship Pokemon, and that's literally playing the game on easy mode. And with the power of guides and online resources, a newer player can, if for some reason you do get stuck, you can kind of cheat your way through that. On top of that, the game is very linear with its story, gameplay, Pokemon moves, and the music. If compared to the more modern games, as I say, Pokemon Red and Blue is like the Fisher-Price toy version of a new car, and that's if that new car is from like the 2000s. Because in the original Game Boy Pokemon games, you basically fight the gym leaders in order. Like, it's really linear. For those who have played the original title when it released, going back to it's very difficult because we've gotten better at these games as gamers. We know the weakness types almost by heart, or at least enough of them to make the game easy, and the advantage charts by memory. The game is almost no challenge to us as we get older, because we expect more from our games. There were no hidden powers. They're just Pokemon knew a move, you did the move, and it did its thing, and this, by definition, is a state of burnout. That depersonalization of that game is created from the aspect of us having higher expectations for what these types of games are now compared to then. This burnout tethers more than just to a singular video game. Narrative games suffer from the same problem, as mentioned with Pokemon Red, but those games' primary goal is to tell a story, much like a movie. Yes, the story is probably one of depth and complexing narrative. Well, for the games from more modern times, yes, but what about older ones? Well, let's look at a very classic and beloved game, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. As a disclaimer, I love this game, but I have a hard time playing it now because I've beaten it more than 10 times. This game tells a compelling story of the hero of time saving Hyrule by stopping Ganon and fixing the future. This, back when it was only on the 64, was an epic video game as it had dungeons, funny and weird characters, a fun interactive combat system, and a great story narrative. But like any great video game or any great movie, you can only experience the story and all its complexity the same as you did when you were younger. For most people, that answer is no, because we're fatigued of the game. We know its main story beats. We know the boss's weaknesses and how to conquer those dungeons. Ganon's evil, tricks the king, gets the Triforce, becomes a god. You stop him. It's at a point where reading the story feels more like a chore and not an actual game. This is not a sign of weakness, but of one's boredom. Because of lack of changes due to the games being created on locked consoles. There was no DLC, there was no additional content. RPGs suffer from this as well, especially back then. Another fatigue-style game would be vanilla Final Fantasy VII. I replay it because I love the soundtrack. If you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get bored of it eventually. And lastly, a final factor that leads into burnout is one's own reduced performance. You might be asking yourself, what does that mean? This implies that just changing one's ability to play the game from how they did in the past to now changes as just naturally as we get older. This happens more with competitive games because as we get older, like such as our 30s and 40s, and as we age, our own bodies naturally become slower. If we look at esports, such as League of Legends, it's not uncommon for a player to retire from the game after the age of 25, but it's more uncommon when somebody lasts longer than 29 or even 30, and this has to do with the ability to upkeep their performance. As we get older, our hand-eye coordination naturally starts to slow down, our reaction time dips, and in a game where you have half a second time to do a flash anti-ult, which is the dictator of a win or lose team fight, if you mess that up, you're going to get kicked off those pro teams. This dictates whether or not you can stay competitively on a team or not. And it's not just League of Legends, but rhythm games, this also happens. Take Dance Dance Revolution. This game is nothing but good music, timing, and precision. Do you think that as you get older, you're going to get faster at this game? No. Burnout for games that require precision gets hampered by one's own performance. This is a form of burnout. Burnout, or video game burnout, is not a bad thing in any way. It's just your brain and body telling you that you've become dull to the activity you're currently doing, and it's time to move on. Work, school, video games all connect to this. Trying something new, playing a variant of that experience. It's fun to relive the same event from time to time, but if someone does that as their only hobby, it becomes a little monotonous. And for gaming, that's not very fun. So there's a way around this. And when a player retires, they often retain involvement in the gaming community that they loved, sharing their experiences, insights, and expertise. They also might continue to contribute to the industry in various ways, such as maintaining a presence as an influencer or even coaching. This allows players of the past to still enjoy the hobby that they love with less strain on their performance side and allow future generations to thrive. So that's why gaming burnout matters. This as a disclaimer, and these are simple solutions. I don't like leaving a video on negative side. Sure, you can play a game on hard or with a randomizer, or there's even speedruns, and you can do these to your games that you love to bring back some of the original joy in these games. And yes, those totally work. Randomizers are amazing. They're fun to watch, they're fun to play. Speedrunning is like playing a video game on extra hard mode because it's basically learning a brand new game, and you get to skip all the boring parts. But that's also why games have difficulty adjustments to keep the longevity of the game and complexity. All of these points are important, but for the sake of this video, it's something worth talking about in the potential future. What are your thoughts on burnout? Have you experienced it? If so, what game and why? Let me know in the comments below what you think. And I appreciate you for watching this video. See you in the next one. Ciao.
Thank you for playing.